Okay, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. So today we got an exciting film to talk about. I want to talk about this film because, it's got a big kind of fan base online, and it's about to be re-released again in theaters at the end of the month. So I thought we would talk about Alita Battle Angel. So, this is a film. It's based on a anime manga. And this was an interesting project. This is like another one of these films that, there are films that just like, they kind of get stuck in development for a long time, like some, 10, 20, 30 years. And this was a film that James Cameron wanted to direct. And he had been working on it in the 90s, like sometime after he did Titanic. And he was like basically trying to do different projects, Avatar and this and some other stuff. And the technology just wasn't there, so he decided to just go into the ocean and go deep diving.
Yeah,
basically.
took some time.
Yeah, so he basically did that for like 10 years. And so then finally the technology after they did Avatar was there to do Alita. But he decided not to direct it and instead have Robert Rodriguez direct the film. But he and some other people worked on the screenplay. So yeah, this is like one of these long-standing projects that finally got made in 2019 after a long wait. So that's pretty cool. So had you ever heard of this film at all, like or this property or this character?
No, I heard about it when it went into production, basically, like real production, not like development hell as they call it in the business. But no, and I was just like, oh, okay. I really didn't have too many thoughts about it. I didn't know its history, that it was a manga. I think I vaguely remember my sister's boyfriend, who is more into anime, at least knows more about it than I do anyway, mention it, like, yeah, they're making it. And he kind of gave me a brief rundown of what it was. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I kind of am a little hesitant when American studios want to make something based on an anime or a manga, because generally it doesn't always seem like it's received well. So I was kind of just like, okay. And then when you mentioned that you wanted to do that again because time had passed, and I heard that there was some controversy about it, and that made me kind of want to watch it because I like movies that have some controversy surrounding them.
Yeah, this film, I would say that it has a very strong fan base.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people who are like trying to get a sequel made or something, or get some more, some more momentum for another film.
We'll talk about. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about later on why there should be one, in my opinion, and how you can't leave me like that.
I know, yeah.
Because I wanted more. I wanted more. Because this movie has so many things going for it, and I'm very excited to talk about it.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the plot of this film. So there's kind of like, there's this, a lot of films now, they do this thing where there's opening credits and there's like the logo of the company. And so in this one, it was Fox. Fox doesn't exist anymore now. Fox has been assimilated by Disney, the Borg.
You hung on as long as you could, buddy.
Yeah, resistance is futile.
Pretty much. Disney's the Borg.
Yeah.
It's the Borg.
So we got assimilated, but we finally get to hear, and one of the things too people always love is that fanfare. That music at the beginning.
Yep.
I can't. It's kind of hard for me to imagine things like Star Wars without the fanfare.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't feel the same. I don't know. It just doesn't feel exact.
I always associate that music, that fanfare with Star Wars, because those are the movies that we watched the most that were by 20th Century Fox. So when I hear that music, my brain goes to Star Wars every time.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was something about it too, because you hear the fanfare and then you hear dun, 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 right? It's just like this musical
It feels like just a continuation of the fanfare. Like that music goes with John Williams' score for Star Wars. Like they fit. It's like this perfect marriage with it, and I don't know. It's just not. It's not there anymore. I know Fox made some turds over the years, but like,
it's for sure, yeah.
It doesn't have a completely bad legacy either.
Yeah, it is kind of sad to see the fanfare go away. Honestly, it's like one of those staples of like film. So yeah, we get the fanfare here. We get the 20th century, and then it switches over to like the 26th century Fox logo, and we get this like title card. It's like the year is 2563, 300 years after the fall. And then there's this city. Like the first thing we see is the city. It's like up in the clouds. It's like floating there. And we see like this garbage falling. And then we see this guy in these scrap heaps, and he finds this person's body, right? Of like a cyborg or an android or something like that. And then he like takes her in and he fixes her up, and he gives her, like, she just has like a head from like here to here, and he gives her a body. And then she wakes up and she's like figuring out her new body and everything. Okay, so right off the bat, let's talk about how Alita looks in this film, right?
That was the first controversy I heard about was the eyes.
Those eyes, she has the anime eyes.
She does. She definitely has the anime eyes. And it's a little, like, I'd seen pictures before and stuff like that of, like, what we were going to be expecting. And while it's a little jarring at first, because that's not how people look, she's not a person entirely. I mean, she is a person later on, but like, I don't know, it just seemed normal within their world. It just, everything else was so bizarre that it was just kind of like, okay, why not?
It's a really strong choice. I like it. I think it works for me. They did a really good job of making her look unique, but not look inhuman. You know what I'm saying?
No, she definitely, and I think part of that is the actress's performance. Like, she must have had some idea, or at least they explained to her, hey, this is how we might make it look in post-production. But she was in a motion capture suit, right? Like, yeah.
Yes.
So her imagination has to kind of run similarly to how she is assuming it's going to look later on. And I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was some of the most flawless work I've ever seen. I read somewhere that the amount of motion capture that went into all of Gollum was in one of her eyes or something like that. Like,
oh my god!
Like in just one eyeball, and I was like, "What?"
Right?
That is so much time. No wonder this movie took a freaking long time. Like, and I'm really glad they didn't do it in the 90s because the technology was not there. It was absolutely not there. I can imagine how this movie would have been in the 90s, and it's kind of scary. I think it would have been a freak show in the 90s. But no, I thought she looked amazing. I thought she looked flawless. And again, what the actress was able to bring to that kind of performance is she was great.
I really think that this film has some of the coolest special effects I've ever seen, especially with the motion capture and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
move over, Marvel. I'm sorry, this movie blew me away at times. Really blew me away.
Yeah, we'll get to. There's this one shot at the very end of the film that I remember when I saw it in theaters. I was like, "Whoa, that!" Like there are certain times where you see, like, the first time people saw the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park that were CGI, and it blew people away. And then, there's like the first time we saw the T-1000. This felt like one of those kinds of movies where I'm like, okay, you've taken this to another level. And I really felt like Alita was like another step where we're breaking ground into something new and different. And I was very impressed, really, for me.
Yeah, I was incredibly impressed. I just like it's kind of like how when they were doing Lord of the Rings, sometimes they would just be making things up or creating new ways of creating things basically as they were going because they had to. It's like, we have these tools, how can we make them work better for us? And that's kind of like, this is like the pinnacle of that. This is like this is what you can do, and it's breathtaking. Like, it was literally just, I was sitting so close to my screen because I wanted to just see every detail. And this is a movie that I would have definitely seen in theaters if I had known more about it. I so regret not seeing it in theaters. I know it's coming back out at the end of the month, but Regal is kind of circling the drain, as it were.
Yeah.
Regal is the closest theater to me.
Yeah. Circling the drain. That's a good way to put it.
It is. But yeah, Regal, I think there's another theater that might be like an hour away. That's not Regal. But I don't know if they'll have it because it's kind of like a smaller theater. But anyway, this is a movie that was made for the big screen. It's not bad on the small screen either or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But it was made to be just amazing. Like, it's a tapestry of so many moving parts. And when you think about how many moving parts are going into all of these shots, it's just, that's amazing.
Yeah. And one of the things I really like too is like there's this moment where she's like looking at her hands, and I was so impressed by all of it. Like the way that they made her look and move. It felt so real and so authentic.
Mm-hmm. Because that's her. That's the actress. That's her bringing this. She's clumsy when she gets out of bed. She falls down. She's not scared. She's just kind of wow. Like, Alita is wow about everything, and I love it. She is so precious. And
she is.
It's kind of like a coming of age story too, which I also really enjoy. Mm-hmm. Because even though she's had like this past life, she's kind of like a kid again in the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
And it's
so she's very childlike.
She's not afraid of anything, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the person who created her and gave her a new body was this guy, Dr. Dyson Ito, who's played by Christoph Waltz. Christoph Waltz is a very interesting actor, right? Mm-hmm. So no one knew who he was for probably 3/4 of his career, right? No one knew anything about him. No one knew who he was. He was in stuff no one ever watched. Then he's gives one of the greatest performances ever, one of the greatest characters that Quentin Tarantino's ever created in Inglourious Basterds. And then he's huge, right?
It's like how Alan Rickman didn't become an actor until he was like 40. So most of it,
which is crazy, right?
Which is crazy. Like, he was doing a bunch of different. He had a whole other life before he became an actor, and which I think is really fascinating. And then Christoph Waltz kind of reminds me of something similar story. But yeah, I will say I don't like Inglourious Basterds. However, that does not mean I don't think he did badly. He scared there's a scene where he is incredibly violent, and it scared the crap out of me. I was like, is he really choking her to death? Because I think he's choking her to death. Like, I think he's really killing her.
Yeah, he's like he's such a great actor in that film, and I think he's probably one of the few people who could like really get what that character is about and get it across.
Did you see Big Eyes?
No, I haven't seen Big. I want to see it, but I haven't seen it yet.
He's such a monster. He's such a monster in that movie.
He's an interesting character, but I think so. Well, the reason why I think he really works in this film for me is that for a while, so Hollywood now has this new toy, which is Christoph Waltz, but they don't really know what to do with him. So they cast him as villains.
Of course.
But he's not really a villainous. He's not like your mustache. They cast him as the mustache twirling villain.
He's not Snidely Whiplash from freaking Rocky and Bullwinkle's, cartoons. He's not that. He can be, but I think his performance in Django Unchained was like, whoa. Because I love his character in Django Unchained. I love that movie.
He's and that I think that film really shows who he really worked. He's either good as a very sympathetic good guy or a very meticulous, calculating kind of evil guy. Those are the things that really, like the person who's like really calculating how and what he's going to do to harm you. Like, though, like, he can do the mustache twirling villain, but it doesn't really work as well.
No.
Right.
I think his best villainous side has been in Inglourious Basterds. I think he gave us everything that he had for villains in that movie.
Yeah.
In Big Eyes, he's just a piece of shit, but he's the worst kind of normal bad person, if that makes any sense.
That doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm.
Because we all know someone like him.
Yep.
So that makes him more villainous in like the real world. And then he's lovely in Alita. He's so good. Like,
he is.
I was so worried that they were going to misuse him, or that he was just going to be the guy who fixes things and that he wasn't going to actually do anything. But he doesn't. He does a lot in that movie. He doesn't sit on the sidelines and let Alita do everything. And it's nice kind of seeing him step into like that. Oh, maybe he can be like also father figures and heroes and, the mentor, the Obi-Wan a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think this is right in the sweet spot of who he is. He's a very, like, he gives off empathy really well. He's really, like you said, as the mentor, he's really good as that. And that's exactly who he is in this film. And it's spot on for what works, I think, for him as an actor to do. It's right in his wheelhouse. So he's the one. So Dr. Dyson Ito is the one who like puts her back together, and he kind of basically takes her under his wing, and he's trying to tell her about the world. And so then we get into like the world building stuff. So they are in this place called Iron City, which is underneath Zalem, which is the floating city we saw while the garbage was falling. And basically says that everyone moved to Iron City after the fall, which was this massive war, and all the other flying cities fell, and Zalem's the last one left. And now everyone basically works to keep Zalem afloat. And then we get some other stuff, like they see this motorball game on television. And motorball...
That was so cool.
Yeah. So motorball, it kind of reminds me of, I think it was called Rollerball. Was this, there was this like film from like the 70s, I think. It was like a Roger Corman film.
That sounds vaguely familiar, yes.
Yeah, so Rollerball, and they're both similar. It's just how close to the arena can you make a sport, quote unquote sport, where people are, basically murdered for the entertainment of other humans.
And the crowd loves it. The crowd goes wild.
The crowd goes wild seeing people get killed. Ito's showing her around. Alita sees this dog, and then she befriends the dog. Yeah.
That dog, if my dog was just a little shaggier, that would look like Ellie.
I know, yeah. And then this robot's about to crush the dog.
Ugh. Fucking robots, man.
I know. It's like a sentry. And so then Alita saves the dog, and she meets Hugo. And so this is like another one of the interesting plot lines in this movie that we'll have fun to talk about. So she meets Hugo, and it's love at first sight. Like, she's like enamored with him immediately. And I love, like, a whole bunch of people like made these comments about Hugo. Like, they said like the actor and the character just looks like the Jonathan Taylor Thomas 90s love, the 90s cool boy.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, totally. He really was. Like, I even thought he was super cute. I was like, oh, that's the kind of guy I liked in high school who didn't like me. So I had to grow into my face. It was a thing. But yeah, he was, and he wasn't bad. I wasn't holding out too much hope, because let's face it, pretty boy action movie, not always a great cocktail for anything great. But no, he was good. Yeah. That actor was pretty good. I liked his character because they made him do stuff. He wasn't just there fawning over Alita. He wasn't just there following her around like a puppy dog. She's following him around.
She's following him around, yeah.
But their relationship gradually develops. It's not instantaneous make-out sessions and stuff like that. It's gradual. They're friends first. Yeah, she has a crush on him, but they're friends, and I like that.
Yeah, she's like immediately really interested in him, but he's like kind of standoffish at first. They both know Dr. Ito. He like supplies Dr. Ito with some hardware, pretty much, because Dr. Ito pretty much he's like the local doctor that like if you had a town doctor that did services for free, like back in the day. That's what Dr. Ito pretty much does. But in this world, you gotta fix robots pretty much because a lot of people have robotic parts.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the first time we meet Hugo, and that they're going to be a big love story in this film. And then there's like some more kind of subplots building stuff up. Dr. Ito's helping this guy, and then the guy like his arms were cut off or something like that by some jackers. There are people who like they instead of like someone mugging you and taking your wallet, someone will mug you and then take your robotic arm. Yeah, which is like pretty messed up, right?
Yeah, it's dark. I mean, instead of boosting parts for cars, like how we would, that's the equivalent, is people who like just steal parts out of your car when it's parked or something like that. These guys are literally taking parts of people, though. And it's pretty messed up because like you take their arms and legs and you just leave the torso there. They're still conscious. They're still waiting for someone to come along, and someone might come along and take the rest of them. No, it's pretty horrible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like I said, it's pretty horrible. And then there's this other stuff about like there's someone, don't know who it is, who's killing women at night. And Alita starts seeing like Dr. Ito, like his arm is bleeding or something like that, and so she's starting to, suspect that he's maybe the one who's doing the killing.
There's a couple red flags.
Yeah, there's a couple red flags, yeah. And so then we meet Sharon, who's played by Jennifer Connelly, who is Dr. Ito's ex-wife. And so Jennifer Connelly sees Alita, and, there's something about her that's kind of like, about Alita that, I don't know, it just like sets her off. Then we get this exposition of like, basically Alita was their daughter. Their daughter died. And that's sort of a reason why they're no longer living on Zalem. And again, Sharon is another sort of like Dr. Ito, a very, very intelligent and very, very good at like, doing this cybernetics and stuff like that.
Yeah, she's kind of like his alter, like he's doing it to help people. She's doing it to kind of help herself.
Yeah, I think they both took the trauma and they went different ways.
Yep.
So Ito became selfless. She became selfish.
Yeah.
And so then we see she's working for this guy, Vector, who's played by Mahershala Ali, who pretty much what they do is they build these super competitors for Motorball. And that's sort of, she's doing that as a way to get back to Zalem.
Yeah, to get back into the good graces of the Sky City.
Yeah. So then we get a scene where, Alita, again, hanging out with Hugo, and Hugo and his crew are playing Motorball. And we get this scene where we really kind of see Motorball on a small scale, as opposed to what they do professionally, which we'll find later. I really like the scene. The scene was pretty fun. One of my favorite parts is like, Hugo's friend, Tanji, like, I think he clotheslines her, right?
Yeah.
Clotheslines Alita?
Yeah, he's just straight off the bat. Yeah, and he just, like, clotheslines the new girl. And, oh, God, that scene actually brought back some, like... So I like to play Ultimate Frisbee in high school. And obviously when you first start at anything, you suck.
Yeah.
I got a little bit better. And eventually, like, there were these kids from another high school who heard we were playing in the park at, like, this after school. And we were just having, like, a friendly game. And they came along and tried to do something similar. And one of them actually ran into me and shoved me really hard in my back, which I contribute a lot of my current issues with my back, and knocked the wind out of me. I don't think I was completely unconscious, but I remember waking up with my science teacher standing over me, and I was mad. I took my gloves off after that. I was not
Yeah.
fair, and I kicked their ass. And
Yeah,
so
good.
I kicked their ass, and I felt a lot of similarities in that scene where it's like, okay, we're gonna play that way. Fine.
Yeah, I really like, so like Alita has this look, that look where you're like, oh, you want to play like that? So yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then she just like messes him up. She like takes his knees out, takes him out from his legs, and then flips him.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that, because then again, it's like, she's a lot of this film is like she's very childlike, she's very naive.
Yeah.
And then, she has to learn how the world works. And then she learns, hey, some people are a dick. And so I'm gonna mess you up, right?
Yeah, because like you gotta stand up to people sometimes. And that was her way of standing up to him. Like, I'm not actually a pushover, and you might think you're really cool and great at this game, but you're just a little turd. And I'm just as good, if not better, at this game than you are. And
yeah,
kids are dicks sometimes. They really are.
Yeah, I really like that. And so again, and this is like the first, we're seeing more of what's going to come out in her personality. Like when you push her, she will push back really hard.
Yeah, and that's what I like about this movie too, because the same way her relationship with Hugo is very gradual, it's the same with like her developing her strength and her resolve in some ways, but also like her power, like her natural gifts that she has is very gradual. We don't see it immediately. We get like tastes of it, and it gets better and better each time.
Yeah, totally. And so then, Hugo and Alita are hanging out some more, and then he's sort of telling her more about the world, and then we get to meet the bounty hunter Zapan. So Zapan is another one of my absolute favorite things of this film. He looks so cool in this movie. I mean,
cool. Yeah, I liked his armor and stuff like that. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, so like the way they did how he looks, like his back is like all mechanical and it's very kind of clockwork and almost like steampunk.
Yes.
It just looks so cool. It's one of my favorite parts of this movie. And he has this really cool sword. And, Hugo tells her, like, guns are outlawed, so people carry swords and like, we'll see some other really crazy weapons. But because guns are outlawed, there's some really interesting weapons that people use that are all kind of like, it's like a cyberpunk take on a, melee weapon, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's kind of, because swords are outlawed and things like that, they kind of have to weaponize their bodies, which I think is pretty cool. And that comes into play more and more throughout the film.
Yeah, and so this is another. I think Hugo Hugo takes Alita to this place. It's a very kind of like Aladdin, right? He has this kind of like Aladdin-esque hideout, and it's overlooking. In Aladdin was obsessed with the palace, and Hugo is obsessed with Zalem. And he really, he's just wants to get there. He thinks it's going to fix his life.
Yeah.
And yeah, that might be his downfall.
It often is. Like, it's not, grass is not always greener on the other side. And that's part of, like, I think what makes her, like, sorry. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
What ultimately makes her fall in love with him is because he's a dreamer. And the guy that they fall in love with is always a dreamer. Because then his dream becomes their dream, and yeah, it's just like a sweet. It was sweet. Like, I just think he's, like, I know we'll get into more about Hugo, I'm sure, but at the end of the day, like, I think he's just a sweet kid who just wants to have a better life, and I think that's something that we can all relate to.
Yeah, totally. Especially when you're, because like, he's super poor and he lives in this world that kind of keeps you down, and then everyone's basically told him, oh yeah, you're never going to be anything other than X. You're never going to be this. You can never go there. You can't do this. He's like, and he just thinks like, well, why can't I? Why can't I like live on Zalem? Why can't I like not have to hustle to live? Why can't I be comfortable? Why can't I do what I want to do in life? And that, I feel like that's like what they're trying to do with this character.
I agree.
Yeah. So then later on at night, so Alita watches Dr. Ito kind of head out. And she's kind of, again, she suspects him of something. So she follows him. And then we see this woman coming down a dark alleyway, and he's wearing a briefcase, and then he takes out of his briefcase this giant scythe with a rocket at the end of it.
That was badass.
Isn't that so cool?
Because even I was like, man, even if he is like a villain in this movie, that's a pretty cool weapon. Like,
yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
So he's got a rocket scythe.
Hammer. Like, god damn. Okay.
Yeah. And he's like about to kill this woman, and then Alita stops him. And he's like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. And it's a trap.
Plot
and so
twist.
It's a trap. And then they get attacked by like 3 different I don't know what you would call these people. Like, they're just kind of,
it's almost like it's so what I like about the villains that we see, they're usually more primarily, I mean, besides Vector and stuff like that, they're more primarily almost entirely stripped away of what would make them human. They just have the face. You know, they just have the mouthpiece. And while
that's a great point.
Yeah, while Alita is similar in that regard, we know that she's still better. Like, there's still elements of her humanity because she's looking at everything in wonder and wants to learn everything. While our villains, including Japan, it's literally just a face. Everything else is just metal. And I think that's what kind of, it's like this last stage of stripping away whatever humanity is left.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, most of the villains we see that, yeah, they're either barely human or they are sort of they're a mouthpiece for someone else that we'll get to. Yeah, but Alita she's very human. As a matter of fact, this is a great line Hugo says, like, you're the most human person I've ever met. He says that about her. And that's sort of the contrast, right? Is that there's all these robotic, very, they almost feel like alien, right?
Yeah, because she has arms and legs that we can see are very human-like, you know? Even her hands, like when you were mentioning that earlier, she has fingernails. If you look really, really closely, because it almost looks like ivory, the way that there's carvings in them and, like, the fingernails. Like, Grishka is literally just bolts and blades. Like, there's no fingers. There's nothing that we can really qualify as human parts except his face. And the same goes for, like, his 2 henchmen and stuff like that. Because because when we see Ito in his, like, infirmary and he's helping people, there's a humanity to them. They want their parts back. They want an arm and a leg. They don't want a giant sword on their freaking hand, because I don't like. He's like, yeah, they took my legs. I don't know why. This is really gonna fuck up my job. Yeah, because you need fingers for whatever work you're doing. You're not a criminal, so you don't need a sword hand. Yeah,
it's like they traded in any sort of, like you said, the humanity, having digits so that you can work and do the stuff. To just, my hand is a sword, my hand is a scythe, my hand is whatever. Yeah, and it's because they've chosen that path where they're gonna be pretty much working, I don't know, doing evil. So Dr. Ito's like, yeah, he's fighting Grishka with the rocket scythe, but he's not strong enough to fight these people. He tells Alita to run away, but she does not run away. Alita is a fighter, and so she fights both of them. She fights this woman who's, like, again, like you said, her hand is like a knife, and I think even her feet are like kind of like blades too. So Alita fights this chick and kills her, just like bashes her head into like
takes her head off with her knee. That's pretty badass.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of cool. Like I wish my knees were that strong. God damn it.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, and then she like fights this other guy too. There's this other guy. I forget what she does to him, but she takes him out pretty easily.
she chops him up, I think, or something terrible. But yeah, she sets him up. He never stood a chance. Like these back alley freaking criminals are just so out of their depth. And
and then she takes on Gruishka, who's massive. He's like hella big. Gruishka and Gruishka's the voiced by Jackie Earle Haley, of Watchmen fame.
Mm-hmm.
So they fight, and then there's this interesting moment where she like does this fighting move. She like jumps up above him, and then she like does a spinning. I mean like a kick or something, and then she has a flashback, right? And this is another really cool scene. So there's this flashback of her fighting on Mars.
Like that was so awesome.
On the moon. I'm sorry, on the moon. So she's fighting on the moon, and they're like a bunch of soldiers.
It's so awesome. Like I loved that moment. I was just like, I want more of that. I need more. And this movie gives so much, but it makes you want more. And I loved that. Like that moment of her like spinning around and fighting on the moon, and like with all of her like badass like friends and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it was great. It was so good.
That was cool too. So there's a voice that's very familiar for us. And so so like Alita's companion, like this person that always keeps coming up, is voiced by Michelle Rodriguez, which feels it's Michelle Rodriguez, yeah. Which is a very James Cameron-y kind of thing, because like, you know, she was I feel like Michelle Rodriguez is basically the replacement of whoever played Vasquez.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. It feels like there was Vasquez, and then there was like, and she was in Aliens, and she was in Terminator 2.
Yep.
And then in Avatar, he just kind of like had Michelle Rodriguez as the young version of her. There's always like the badass Latina.
That's pretty cool. Well, I'm pretty sure that the girl who plays Alita is also Latina as well.
Yeah.
And it was nice seeing that. I'm glad that was involved. I didn't know that. Oh my god. She's
also the person who plays Alita. She's in some Star Trek franchise, right? Or like an episode or something like that, I believe.
Maybe. I know her last name is Salazar.
Yeah, it's Rosa Salazar.
Yep.
I
bug me though.
I know she was in some Star Trek thing where she played like a captain, I think.
Yeah, she was in a short trek.
Yeah.
She was in a short trek where she played a captain. It wasn't my favorite short trek, quite frankly. However, she kind of plays a captain who, it's like her first commission, basically. And it all goes wrong. It's not her fault, but it all goes wrong, and tribbles are involved, and they kind of just take over the ship. And at the end of it, she's in like an inquiry, and they're like, "Oh, so you're saying your ship blew up because of tribbles?" And she's like, "Yeah."
It blew up?
Oh yeah. H. John Benjamin's
no.
like a mad scientist who just won't stop he knows how to stop the tribbles from reproducing, but he won't because he's just a little bitch, basically. He just mansplains a lot of things. He's just the worst mad scientist if you can imagine. And he's the reason why like the ship blows up, because he won't stop the tribbles from reproducing.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, so Rosa Salazar, all over the sci-fi stuff.
I want more of her. I think she should be in more sci-fi. She fits in so well.
Yeah.
She understands it. She gets it. And I love it.
Yeah. So she has this really cool flashback, right? And we just get a little glimpse of it. And yeah, they're fighting on the moon, and she's with Michelle Rodriguez, and they're like, I mean, they're kicking some ass on the moon. Mm-hmm. It is a great scene. And then she goes back, and then she finishes her kickflip, and she like basically kicks Grishka's arm off. And like Grishka is what, like 20, 25, 50 times bigger than her?
Mm-hmm. He's a lot bigger. He's a force to be reckoned with. He's like the Hulk. The Hulk was a machine.
Yeah, he's just like a machine Hulk. And she's taking him out like pretty easily. And so then she picks up the scythe and she's fighting him off, and then he jumps into the sewer and runs away. So
yeah, go back to the shadows from whence it came. Like,
yeah. This was pretty cool, right? Now we're really seeing like what Alita's about, like what she can do.
You're like, oh, that's what she can do, but there's still gonna be more.
Yeah, yeah.
Better. Her every fight scene, like you can't, like, how are they gonna top the last one that I just saw? And they do, and it's like, wow. It blows me away every time. I think I might watch it again. I'm not gonna lie. I really want to watch it again.
Yeah, it's a really fun movie, and like you said, they just continue. The world building is cool. It leaves you wanting more. The characters, you kind of can feel a connection with them right away. You know, Alita, she has this kind of, there's a naivete, but like, you know, she's like a newborn person.
She is, literally.
Yeah, who has all this power and she doesn't know what to do. But she, you know, we'll get into like the themes of this film. And I think thematically what I really like is like, you know, like we see Dr. Ito is kind of worried about her. He wants to lead her in the right direction, but he knows she has this power and he's kind of worried that she's going to be a force for evil or something. You know, you don't know, right?
Yeah, he's also projecting a lot too. Like he made the body originally for his daughter. You know, if that's not projection incarnate, like physical projection, then I don't know what is. But he's projecting a lot, but it doesn't undermine his true care for her, and that he does feel responsible. You know, hey, I gave you a body, I brought you back to life, basically. I need to protect that because I think that's what a parent should do. It's very parental because I gave you life. I need to make sure that that life continues living. And
yes. I
love that theme of it. That's like the best parenting ever. Like wanting to make sure that your kid is just safe and alive.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's great, especially in this world where I'm sure parenting sucks. Like,
you know, you really get the sense that I don't know, it looks like a shanty town, like where they're living, right?
Yeah, like you're born in poverty, you live in poverty, you die in poverty. Like,
yeah, it doesn't look very good. It reminds me a lot of kind of the worlds that like the Neil Blomkamp stuff where he builds up. Mm-hmm. What was that movie he did with the aliens that showed up?
Oh, was it not Section 8?
I think District 9.
District 9. I was close.
It reminds me a lot of like the District 9, where like the aliens show up and then they basically end up living in like these shanty towns, and they're in poverty and they're treated terribly by humans. That's what it feels like where they live. And so it seems like if she got into the wrong hands, she could have just been another one of these people at night that they turn into the super soldier to like just go kill and rob and do other horrible things. But fate had it that she was put into a good situation, pretty much. Yeah,
like you're lucky where you're born sometimes, and unlucky in other respects. But whatever your situation is that you're born into, it's up to you to kind of try and either make the best of it or do something better or want more.
Yeah. So that was, again, this fight scene was really cool, but this, again, this is just the beginning. So then we get this scene later on we see Sharon and Vector, and this is kind of interesting. It was kind of like little fan servicey, like seeing Jennifer Connelly, and like, I don't know what she was wearing, but it was some like lingerie.
Yeah, that was pretty. Oh, no. She looked good.
Man. She looked great. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's just thinking about her career. I was thinking about her career, like watching this, and like she blew up like from the jump, from like the minute that she was in film. She was in huge films with huge directors. I mean, she worked with she was in Once Upon a Time in America, which was a Sergio Leone film, the last film he ever did, basically before he died. She was in a film with Dario Argento, who's one of the greatest Italian directors of all time.
Yep.
And then she was in Requiem for a Dream with Darren Aronofsky. So she's just like been in big films and like it you know, oh, she was in Labyrinth. Like she's just in big film after big film. And then her career kind of matures and she's sort of reached the point where she's doing roles like this, which are interesting. And yeah, she's just like one of the like, I don't know. I just feel like she's just like a staple of like the Hollywood star, like almost like an old school way. Really,
I was actually just gonna say she's always had this very classic silver screen look to her. You know, the dark hair, the beautiful light blue eyes, just this. She could be anybody. You know, she could be a femme fatale, or she can be your mom, or she can be your girlfriend. You know. I love her in A Beautiful Mind. She's so wonderful in that movie.
Yeah.
Because she plays all of those characters. You know, she plays she's his student in that movie, so that's not cool. But
yes.
But that's the thing. We meet her in the classroom, but she's the next scene. She's this mature academic because it totally throws him through a loop. But I love that. I love that character she plays. I mean, she's also based on a real person, but no, I love her. She has a very interesting body of work, and I just think she just has always had that very classic, iconic, like Hollywood star. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, she feels, and I think you were someone who talked a lot about like you liked The Rocketeer, right?
Yeah, she's in that, and
she's like the love interest in that. Which is a very kind of old Hollywood. I mean, she's an actress, right? And
yeah, she's playing an actress. Like, one of my favorite scenes in that movie is when like they're actually filming a scene. It's like this Robin Hood type swashbuckling thing, and she's an extra. And she went out for the part, like her and all her friends, like went out for the part for the love interest, and the one they cast is just so bad. It's just. Like they made this actress act so badly.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny because her and her friends are just like, any one of us would have been so much better. Like, who is this girl kidding? And it's so funny. It's a really good. I love that movie so much. That's another one I want to watch.
Yeah, that movie is super fun. It's just like you talk about a fun movie. The Rocketeer is a fun movie.
Yeah, and it's about beating up Nazis. Like,
yeah,
they just beat up Nazis in the end, and it's got some of those like. Really cheesy, like "go get 'em, kid" kind of a thing, or that moment when he's standing in front of the American flag and he's got like the gun, and everyone's like, "Look, it's him."
Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, she's playing a wannabe Hollywood starlet. Yeah, she's good.
She's great. So yeah, we get this scene. So it's her and Vector, Sheeran and Vector, and they're kind of talking about like pretty much Vector is. I guess the best way you could put it is he works for the guy, right? Who we'll get into in a second, and it's his job to Vector's job is to kind of make sure that the motorball games are kind of rigged, I guess you could say. And so he rigs the games and rigs the odds by making sure that there are certain competitors hold certain competitors down, keep other ones up, make sure that no one can really win the games, pretty much, who's not supposed to.
Yeah.
So they're talking, and Sharon's like, "Oh, I need more stuff so that I can make really strong competitors." And then he goes away. Vector goes away, and then Grishka shows up. He freaking busts through the wall like like the Kool-Aid man.
Yeah, pretty much.
Literally.
Just shows up completely disheveled, looks like shit, probably smells bad.
Yeah, I mean he lives in a sewer, right?
Yeah, which I think is funny because the last time we see him, he's jumping down a hole and then he's jumping through a window and then.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm telling you, he is literally like the Kool-Aid guy.
Yep.
Hey, I need repairs.
Yep.
So Sharon, the next day, Sharon's fixing him up. And so then we meet the real nemesis of this film, this guy Nova. So this guy Nova takes over Grishka's mind and talks through him.
Yeah, I think they mentioned there's some kind of implant in there.
there's something in his head. And so, he's talking through Gruishka and basically telling Vector, hey, you need to do what Sharon tells you to do. And Nova kind of, just Nova knows stuff about Alita. And Sharon is telling Nova, like, oh yeah, Alita is the one who jacked this dude up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, you have to bring me Alita, basically.
He did.
He
kind of feels like an evil emperor moment. Or like
I
am Pharaoh.
Yeah. Bring me her heart.
Very, very dramatic. I want her heart on a freaking plate or some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, super dramatic. He also, like, is able to take control of Vector, too. And whenever he takes control of someone, their eyes turn blue. He's talking through them. And he's, they just have the conversation. This is really, a lot of it is just like, this teaches us, okay, so Nova is this, we don't know who it is. We haven't seen them, but we know that they have tons of power and tons of control. And they're the ones Nova is the one behind the scenes, pulling the strings. Everyone is actually working for Nova.
Yeah, and it also shows you that, Vector is a villain, but he's not the villain. He's not the one pulling the strings. He's just, I love that line that he has. It's a quote from something. I just can't remember what it was. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, basically. And he's kind of someone who I feel like accepts, I'm never getting to Solemn. I'm just going to hang out here and be the king of my own domain.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I think we'll get into it later, but he also knows, the price you have to pay to actually get up to Zalem.
Yeah, and I think he's smart enough to not pay that price. And because we see what happens later on. And he's fine with just being a king down here and letting the big guy run the show up there. And I think he accepted his place a long time ago. I think he did. And I think that also shows he's not just a one-dimensional villain either, which I like. I hate one-dimensional villains who are just like, I'm evil because. Why? Like, we're in a time where we like knowing backstory. We like knowing why villains are the way that they are so that we can sympathize with them and understand them. And I think we're seeing a better class of villain nowadays. They don't always get it right, but I feel like there are some cases where even if they're not the main villain, Vector has his reasons, and you see that in moments. You definitely do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially when we've seen this world. This world is so poor, and people are basically killing each other to try and get out.
Yeah, maybe he was Hugo at one point. Maybe he was in Hugo's shoes and knows this is not a two-way deal. This is just what I'm promising you. And maybe he was Hugo at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then we get this really interesting scene. So later on, like, Dr. Ito and Alita are having this conversation about, like, Alita's like, oh, I want to play motorball. And basically.
I want to play motorball, Dad. No.
Yeah, no, you can't play, son. Like, it's terrible. Oh, I want to do it. And so he talks about this basically there's a flashback to, like, what happened to his daughter and, like, why he hates motorball. So, like, there was this guy that he helped. So he used to help build these people who fought in the motorball tournaments. And then one day a guy came and he was, like, to his office looking for drugs. But he was just crazy. I mean, crazed. And then the guy, he breasts in, he's, like, stealing stuff. And then he, like, sees their daughter who's, like, in a wheelchair, and he just freaks out and kills her. And that ruined his life. Yeah,
that ruined his life. But we can't talk about, this is a cameo I did recognize.
I didn't, but I'm glad you did.
It was the chin, dude. It was that chin. Like,
that chin is recognizable for sure.
That chin makes Casper Van Dien recognizable, and yet I feel like that's the reason. I mean, partly probably because of his acting, but also I feel like his face was just too symmetrical. I have this theory that too much symmetry can actually do bad things for you. But I was like, that's fucking Casper Van Dien. Oh my God. And then when I checked it just to make sure I was right. And lo and behold, I was like, that's awesome. I don't know why, but I was just like, that was so cool to have him in that movie, even for that one moment. And he's a villain. And it's good. It's really good.
Yeah. So Johnny Rico, our good, our guy Casper Van Dien. Yeah, Johnny Rico's been in some stuff. After the rednecks, the roughnecks, or whatever.
Yeah, he was in some stuff, and I think he married a princess or something like that. I think there was a reality show. I think there was, and if it is anywhere streaming, I might watch it just because I'm a glutton.
Yeah.
I just need to know because I like knowing things about actors who are like like we've talked about this before, how Hollywood promises them so much and then it doesn't turn out how they plan.
Yeah.
Ellie, one moment. Okay. But yeah, I was really happy to see him in the movie. I don't know why, I just was.
Yeah, I didn't until this time watching. I didn't because he's in it for a very short amount of time. It's just this,
short.
And you see his face like for 15 seconds. It's very quick. But yeah, I mean he's yeah, and yeah, he just like he comes in, he freaks out and he kills her and then just runs off. But yeah, this is like a really big moment in Dr. Ito's life because then his wife blames him for it. She leaves him. She goes off on her journey, basically to the dark side, right?
Yep.
And then he becomes a hunter warrior to make amends. He's always trying to like basically find Casper Van Dien, trying to find that chin, so he can like get revenge.
And what I like about that, because like the loss of a child can often, like obviously like it does in the movie, tear people apart and ruin marriages and lives and everything like that. And a lot of these parents will say there's no closure whatsoever, and the fact that he doesn't ever get to the cyborg who killed his child kind of rings true with that, is that there's never any closure. And even if he did find him and kill him, I think he would just keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. There's this one really good scene in it's like Batman Forever where basically it's the first time when Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne are like kind of talking and like Dick is like, you got to help me get revenge, and Bruce is like, revenge it's not going to do it for you. You're gonna go out trying to get revenge. You'll finally do it. You'll kill the guy who killed your family, but then you're still going to have that emptiness, and then you're going to go out and kill more, trying to fill that void, and then you're going to live just to serve the emptiness. Mm-hmm. You're serving that void, that thing that you thought you're going to get out of getting revenge. You're serving that instead of trying to do good. Yeah. And it's not going to get you anywhere.
Instead of healing and processing it, which is also what that whole movie's about, is the fact that Bruce Wayne never really processed the death of his parents in the correct way. He ended up repressing a lot of things. Is very true of, he's trying to warn him, he's just trying to be like, you don't want to be like this because I'm dealing with a lot of shit and I'm almost 40, kid.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Oh, there's so many things about that movie that are so good, and then just so wrong.
The campiness is the problem. If you take the campiness out, I think you got a good film.
I completely agree. There are some things in that movie that are just like, why is this movie being smart right now? Why is it's introducing psychology into Batman's psyche for the first time in the franchise? Cool. Let's talk about his mental health because it's bad.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I feel like Dr. Ito, there's a lot of the same stuff, right? Like he's trying to find a way to make amends for the things he felt. He felt like he didn't protect his daughter, right? And all these choices he made led her to being killed by something that he felt he created. He felt like he was responsible for creating this person who freaked out and killed her. And then we get some more exposition about Alita. Says her heart is like this made of this. Basically, she's this old, advanced technology that was from a time during the war, basically. And then we'll later on we'll get into like what the war was about and who were the combatants and stuff like that. Then we get some more scenes of Alita and Hugo. You know, again, their romance is building more and more, and they go to a professional motorball game.
I loved that scene so much. It was just, I love how she just gets into it so fast. She's like, "This is awesome! Oh my god!" She's like cheering, and like I think one of the cyborgs slams against like the window or something, or the plexiglass, and she's like, "Yes!" It's so good. It's nice seeing teenagers, because she is a teenager, but she's not because she's so old. But it's nice seeing teenagers just having like natural fun. Like this is something kids would probably go and watch. Like, you know, equated to whatever sports, or like a hockey game is what I really equated it to, or NASCAR, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love how thrilled she is to be there, and she soaks up every new experience and just enjoys it to the fullest. And I love that about her.
Yeah, totally. Like she's having so much fun, and like the other part of it too is like now Hugo's trying to impress her because he's like he likes her. He's like, oh well, yeah, I'll show you now. I know these people.
Passes. Like
yeah.
Cool.
Then there's this interesting scene. I couldn't confirm it or not, but I remember they go behind and then they see this like, oh, who's the top competitor? And it looked like the guy from your favorite guy who you hate.
It was.
It was him. Oh my god! the worst John Connor of all time, or what? No, the worst. What did he play? He was the worst.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was just. Oh no, I think you froze. I don't know if you can hear me. Oh no.
Worst Kyle Reese of all time. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, there you are.
Am I okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I lost
Cool.
you for a
Great.
second. But yeah,
okay.
The worst Kyle Reese of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, there's a problem when Casper Van Dien, who has 15 seconds in this movie, is better than you. And all you do is bitch at people how like my skates are pretty loose or something.
Yeah. God, that's all he did.
Dick, like. I'm sorry.
What's the guy's name?
Jay or Jai Courtney or something.
Jai Courtney, yeah. Jai Courtney.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just so bad. Stop trying to make him a thing. Stop.
They really are. like they're trying really hard to make him a thing.
And I was really hoping.
I'm not even sure why.
Because I watched Suicide Squad before I saw Terminator Genesis, and I was like, okay, like, I guess he's okay. I didn't really have an opinion. I'd have to rewatch my review of it, but I really don't want to hear myself talk about that movie because I hated Suicide Squad. But yeah, he's just not good. He's just not good, and I don't know how he's supporting himself, paying his agents and people to publicize him. Maybe one day I'll be wrong, and he'll actually get some acting lessons. I don't know if he went to drama school. I have no interest in learning anything about him. I really don't. That's how little I care about this actor. And I'm going to stop myself there before I say something really mean, even though he'll never see this and doesn't give a shit at what I think.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny that he was in it. I was like, that's Jai Courtney. It's him again. It's like,
go away.
He won't go away. So then in this game, so I think basically what happens is someone who's like kind of an underdog wins. And it's sort of, unexpected, and Vector not happy. He's like, this is not good. He's messing up the odds. We need to take this guy out. So, and he has this interesting technology. So he has this like, I don't know what you would call it. Like there's almost like spiked claws that kind of shoot out.
Yeah, I like when you see it for the first time and you hear the announcer go like, "Is that even legal?" I'm like, nothing's legal in this game.
Yeah.
Like everything goes in this game.
Yeah, anything goes.
Kind of
totally.
Shoot out and they're like, spike, you can grab someone and like pull them back. It's pretty neat. Like I'm sure I've seen stuff like that before in movies and action movies, but I like how they utilized it because when you're in motion instead of just standing still, you can do more with that. Like you can swing them around, you can throw them, you can drag them, especially when you're moving at really like fast speeds. So I liked that aspect of it because it took something that was kind of familiar, like a weapon, and then and now they're moving like 80 miles per hour.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the guy wins, and then Hugo's like, "Oh, sorry, Alita, I gotta go. Can you get home okay?" Just kind of random.
Yeah, I was like, okay, but
yeah, okay, yeah, I'll be fine.
Yeah,
Thank you. I mean, she will be fine.
Oh yeah, she'll be okay. I do like though that he follows it up with, "Hey, I'm going out tomorrow. Do you want to come?" kind of a thing. So he kind of makes up for it, even though he's kind of ditching her. And she's like, "I would love that." And it kind of puts a Band-Aid over okay, I guess we'll cut our date short.
Yeah, she's unhappy because, she loves him or whatever. Yeah. But then we get this big reveal about Hugo. So there's the guy's won the tournament. He's celebrating with some women, let's put it that way. And then they just jump this guy, right? They jump him, they electrocute him, and they take his parts. And then Vector shows up, and Hugo is the head of this crew of people who go around jacking people of their parts.
Yep, and this is what makes him not just a lovey-dovey 90s cute, pretty boy. This gives character to him. It gives depth. It gives him his motivation of how is this kid gonna make it to Zalem? We don't really see him doing anything until I was upset. I almost felt like if I were Alita and I stumbled upon that, I'd be like, oh no.
Yeah, it just breaks your heart, right? You're like, I believed in you. I thought you were good.
And the thing is, he doesn't really lie to Alita about what he does because she never asks. She doesn't really ask him what he does to survive. She's kind of just caught up in the moment of life. It's like when you fall in love with someone for the first time. You don't care about any of the flaws. You just want to be around them and spend time with them and get to know them, and then the cracks start to show. So he's not like he ever deceived her or anything like that. He just didn't tell her. But that's because I don't think he was expecting to fall in love with a cyborg, and it gives that tension to the plot and creates drama, and there's going to be a reveal later. And I was just disappointed. I was like, no, honey, you're something better.
But yeah, it shows, again, he has character. He's not just some cute boy. He's someone who has made some choices because he felt he has a dream and he feels like this is the only way he could achieve it is jacking people. And
he sleeps with it at night because he doesn't actually kill them. That's how he rationalizes it, is that we're just
exactly.
Parts, you can get new ones, and that's what we're doing, basically. He can sleep better knowing that he didn't actually kill anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing, too, is, again, there's this promise that he's given by Vector. We're going to see more later about what that promise means, if that's even real. Is Hugo also being lied to? Is Hugo, again, I feel like he's just like, this world sets him up to fail.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And, this is just sort of the result. It just feels like everyone in Iron City is dog eat dog.
Yeah, it is.
They set everyone against each other, and basically, it's like a pyramid. There's a couple people at the top who live off of everyone fighting each other at the bottom.
Yep. Pretty much. And you're just parts. That's all you are. Everybody's just a part. It's either your part to play or what your parts can provide. Yeah,
totally. So, yeah, then the next day we get this little thing where Hugo and friends and Alita are all going to go out. They said that there's some ship they want to show her outside of town that might tell her something about her past. This is a really cool scene. So they leave Iron City, and we see what the world is like outside of Iron City, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's not so bad. I mean, you could probably live out there, but people really can't because there's not a lot of resources. But, it's not like this. It's not like a Mad Max Fury Road or anything like that. There's still trees and plant life and things like that, which I like. It's not just one barren wasteland.
Yeah, and what's cool, too, is you see these massive machines that are doing agriculture. Mm-hmm. So basically there's these big machines that are feeding the cities, and then there's also, I forget exactly what it was, but there was these like almost like a shield or something, like towers of water.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was like feeding the agriculture or something, but it was just all really, really cool. Like the world building they're doing. They're showing us what the world is like now, but without like having to like, really be expository about it. It's just like, notice like, oh, okay, so now I think I understand how this world works. There's these small cities that are being fed by agriculture outside, and the outside is just nature, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's not, like I said, it's not terrible to live out there. You might not be able to sustain maybe a home with some of the more amenities you might have in Iron City, and you can find work in Iron City. Like we see that whole train of people who are just waiting to get in, basically. But yeah, there's still opportunity elsewhere, which I liked.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And so they get to the ship, and it's in the water, and Alita just dives right in. And they're like, I'm not sure you should do that. Like, we're not sure you can get in. But she's able to get in. She gets inside of this thing, and then she finds this body, this suit that's there. And, and she's able to control the ship, like, immediately. Like, she just gets it. It's like there's this connection, and yeah, she finds a suit, and she takes it, and she takes it home to Dr. Ito, and he's like, I am not going to do this. I'm not going to unite you in this body.
Dad says no.
Dad says no, and it's like, why do you say no, Dad? Well, now we get some more stuff. So this was kind of talked about a little bit before with what's the guy? The guy behind the scenes. He talks a little bit about who she really, Nova, who she really is, and like what she is, right? So the body is what they call, it's a berserker, and so it's basically a weapon, and Alita is a weapon. Alita is a weapon, a cyborg weapon that she's like a practitioner of this art form, this martial arts form, I guess you could call it, called the Panzerkunst, whatever. Yeah, which is like what we saw her do to Grishka at the beginning, where she like did the flip and like chopped his arm off with her foot. And uniting her with this body would make her like really full on a weapon. It would make her like a
real warrior.
Yeah. So like what we're seeing of her right now is,
it's like it's not even the whole sword, man. And you're like, wait, there's more she can do? Like, it's just it's so cool, and I understand why he's like so hesitant still, because again, he's still trying to protect her, but I think also he likes having someone to protect, and he knows uniting her with this body that'll kind of end. She won't really need protection anymore, but he also doesn't know, like, it's kind of like, will it corrupt her? Will she just go on a rampage? Like, because there's still like a connection that needs to be made. Like, I feel like the suit needs to work with her, but it has its own separate power as well, and they have to like work together.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of stuff going on with Ito. I think it's like, he views her, like, again, he gave her this body that he had for his daughter. He's taking care of her, and he views her in that way, and he's kind of got her in this box, and creating her as a weapon takes that away. Mm-hmm. But also he's worried because you never know where it's going to go. Maybe she'll turn into a weapon and she'll start killing people. And I think he connects that with what he did with all these, motorball people, where he made them into weapons, and then one came home and it killed something that he cared about. Yep. So there's a lot going on there. And this is sort of the point where Alita now is starting to assert her independence. Yep. And trying to find herself. And I think there's a part of Dr. Ito, he's afraid that she's going to become evil or something, or destructive. So then he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And so she's like, okay, I'm done with this. She goes up, she signs up to become a hunter warrior. And then her and Hugo, they go to a bar, a hunter warrior bar. Yep. And then we get another really cool scene. So again, we see Zapan, who's just looks so freaking awesome, and all these other bounty hunters. The one that stands out the most to me was like the one with the dogs.
Yes, I liked him. He was pretty good. It's kind of like this Kenny Rogers cyborg thing that they had going.
Yeah.
He kind of even looks a little bit like James Cameron too when you look at him a little closer. I actually wonder, like, is James Cameron making an appearance in this movie too for a second? But yeah, it was cool. It was kind of like when Star Wars shows you different kind of bounty hunters and stuff like that. Oh, well, this is how many kills he's had and stuff like that. So yeah, it was kind of like going into a bar in Tatooine where all the bounty hunters hang out.
This is very much like the cantina stuff, right? It's like when you go into that new world where you're like, okay, this is where the real people do their stuff, and you're not in Kansas anymore. You're not with Dr. Ito. This is like where people who are hardcore, where they go to hang out. Mm-hmm. And so then Alita gives a speech where he's like, "Oh, hey, let's all come together and fight Grishka." They're not having it. You know, they laugh at her. And they're just kind of like this freaking little kid. And Zapan keeps like goading her and being a dick with his little crystal shit stash that he's got going. I know, yeah.
Wasn't he the villain in Deadpool too?
He was. So this guy, he's an interesting actor. I think his name's Ed Scarin or something like that. So he was in Game of Thrones for like 3 seasons. Yeah, and he played.
Yeah, the Sword Master or something like that, or.
Oh, I can't even remember the character anymore, but he was amazing.
They recast. Yeah, they recast him, I think.
Oh, he got too big for the show. It's crazy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he got too big for the show, and then he started getting big. Basically, he used that to get into film, and like get big film, because like now he's a film actor, and he's in this. I mean, he really blew up. He was in Deadpool. He's in this. He was in some other. He's in big films now.
Yeah.
And they had to recast because he was like, "I'm done with this. You can pay me more."
Oh, is it Dario Naharis or something like that? He played
Dario Naharis, yeah. And he's a great Dario Naharis. What's kind of funny, though, is like, I didn't notice this until later, because that was the first time I'd ever seen him, but they really kind of brown-faced him to play Dario.
He's pretty white.
He's really white. And I'm like, wait, is this the same guy? Oh, it is the same guy. This is what he actually looks like. He's a white British dude. Yeah,
he's a white British dude. He's good at playing the bad guy. Yeah, but that's his thing right now. And like I said, he's not bad. I liked him in Deadpool. I liked him in this. He's good. He's easy to hate. He's good at doing that. But yeah, he's like kind of goading Alita and hitting on her too at the same time.
I know, yeah. He's like, "Oh, I'll show you the ropes." It's like,
she's like, "Ew!" Like he's like that guy you always shut down.
Yeah. There's even like a scene where he's like kind of hanging on her, and he's just like, she's like,
I hated when guys do that, when they put their arm and they just drag their weight over your shoulders, and you're just like, dude, stop. Just
get the hell away from me.
Exactly. I mean, like, if Brian does that, that's fine because he's my boyfriend. But like, if I don't know you, don't put your arm on me.
It's just a random dude, right?
like, stop it. Nobody likes that. Like, advice to dudes who do that to random girls. We don't like it. But yeah, and he's also kind of like, he's being a bully, and he's like trying to shake up the rookie or something like that, and she pwns his ass.
Yeah, she pwns him, and then there's a huge bar. So she messes him up, beats him up. There's a bar fight. Everyone's fighting. Ito shows up, and he's like, "Hey, you stop it!" And then they stop. Yeah, it's great. It's really funny.
Yeah, because he's the best. He's the best, like, cyborg doctor, and obviously they all go to him. I like to think that maybe they watch out for him too a little bit because he's the only human who's doing this, and he could be easily hurt. So maybe I like to think that they kind of watch out for him because they need him to like fix them later if they get pretty messed up. But I like that. He's just like, no more free repairs. And I'm just like, okay, well, let's not say things we can't take back.
Yeah. So then souped up Grishka shows up.
Oh, that douche.
And if we didn't already hate him, then Alita's dog shows up, right? And and then he kills the dog. He kills the dog.
Yeah, and Hugo's pretty shook because he sees that claw thing that he stole on
Which he
Grishka,
jacked.
and now he's like, oh, I didn't know it was going to that guy. Like, obviously, I wouldn't have stolen it if I had known.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and so then we get Alita, the battle angel moment, where she like takes the blood and she like puts the stuff over her eyes, and then she fights Grishka in the sewer.
yeah, that was a really good fight.
This is a crazy fight.
That was very harrowing. Like, I knew they were gonna have to get her in that suit eventually, but that was horrible. That was so bad.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really cool shots. Like he's shooting the things at her, and she's like dodging them in slow motion. And again, he calls her like little fleas, like dance little flea, and he's like ah. Yep. And so there's like one moment where she doesn't. I think there's some more flashbacks too in this. I forget.
I think there's a couple of flashbacks, of her like training and like a bubble thing.
Training with Michelle Rodriguez, yeah. It's like finish the mission. Yeah,
and that's when she kind of remembers Nova for a minute. Like he's kind of like a spectator almost. I think he's there. Yeah, he's kind of like, so they're training inside this bubble thing, and you kind of see his face watching on like a monitor. He's not physically present, but he's there. Oh no, I lost you again. Oh no. His screen froze. I'm waiting for him to come back to me. Yeah, she's just sitting there, keeping an eye on me.
That's a good, yeah. Are we back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's just like slight interruptions or something are happening, unfortunately. Yeah, thanks a lot, Comcast. Shout out to them. I hate Comcast. They're evil. Okay, so yeah, this fight is like really good. And so she's dodging the stuff, and there's all these really cool slow motion shots. Mm-hmm. But then her body gets chopped up, and then she's just a torso and one arm. But then she then does this move where she like flips herself and then like shoves her arm into his eye.
Yeah, she uses like her last limb to fuck him up.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. Like, she won't stop fighting. Like, she won't stop fighting. She won't. And it's like that just showed her like you're willing to rip off your last limb just to prove a point. And it's like, damn, that girl's tough. Like, yeah, she's a cyborg. She's tough. The cyborgs can clearly feel pain. Like, there's still some kind of pain receptor there. Mm-hmm. Whether that's programmed in their brain for them to feel pain, but they don't actually feel pain or something like that. She's definitely messed up. And it was awful seeing her like that. It was so sad.
Yeah, it was really, and because she was just nothing at that point.
Well, she physically looks right back to where she was when Ito finds her. And yeah.
And so then the bounty hunter, the dog bounty hunter guy, and Ito and Hugo, they come down there and they save her. They sick the dogs on the guy. And the guy has this funny, like, oh, I didn't like him. He wasn't a dog lover.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so then the next day, Ito restores her with the berserker body. Mm-hmm. And then she wakes up the next day and she's like, fully Alita. And I guess they say she's a little bit older than they thought.
Yeah, it's almost like the suit ages her a little bit because they're just back. They're back to being one. They're kind of back to where they started. What obviously wasn't her original body. But maybe it catches her up on some things, like some growth and some maturity. Because she definitely matures after it. Whether that's just because she learned the lesson of, going into battle really emotional might not be the best frame of mind in situations like that. You need to be more logical and level-headed and be a little bit more strategic, because it definitely teaches her a lesson that she's not invulnerable to everything.
Yeah, exactly. She's not invulnerable. But yeah, I really like the scene too, because like then we really get the thematic part of this film where Dr. Reader says, like, now you know who you are, but this is just a shell. It's not good or bad. It's up to you to figure out what you want to be.
Yeah,
And
I love that line too. It's such a it was such a dad moment too. Like, this is my last final bit of wisdom I'm going to give to you, because now, it's each act of the film shows a new level of maturity for Alita. I feel like she's an adolescent, she's a kid, she's an adolescent, now she's a woman. Now she's an adult.
Yes.
And there's only so much our parents can continue teaching us, and I feel like this is his last little bit of, okay, now you're leaving the nest kind of a thing, and here's what I'm going to say. And it's a really sweet moment. I love that. I love their relationship in this. It's such a nice father-daughter dynamic, because they argue and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, like, she even calls him dad at one point.
Yeah. It's really sweet. I feel the same way. Like, like, I think that's such a good point. It's the maturation. Like, she's getting more experience really quickly and understanding the world, and she's finding herself. Right? It's all this whole, like you said, it's a coming of age. She's finding herself in this world, like what she wants to be, who she wants to be.
She's a badass.
Yeah. So then we get this interesting scene later. So she meets with Hugo, right, at Hugo's place. I think Hugo had just met with like Vector, and they were talking about getting him to Zalem or whatever. And then like Hugo's like, he keeps, again, it's all, like you said, it's his dream is her dream now, and his dream is like to go to Zalem, and they're talking about that. And Alita's like, okay, how much would it cost to go there? He's like, oh, it costs us 90,000 credits. It's like, oh, I could do that easily. I could do that for you. I could do all these bounties, or I could sell my heart. And she pulls out her heart.
You don't need to look hard for that metaphor. Like, she even says that I'm literally giving you my heart. And
she says she's like all or nothing.
Yeah.
With people.
Like, that's what she would do for him. And I believe her. I believe she would do that. Like, she's literally holding it at one point. And I love that he tells her, like, you can't keep doing these things for people. Like, not everyone is good. And I think she knew that already, but it's kind of his way of telling her, like, you can't trust me in all the way, kind of a thing. And it's a bittersweet scene, because she doesn't know yet, and the audience knows, and that could go either way. As far as the audience is concerned, he could be like, oh yeah, totally, I'll take it. I want to get to Zalem, but it's not worth her life. It's not.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it shows that he does have some moral compass, right? Absolutely. He wants to get there, but he's not going to exploit her. Like you said, he has a moral compass, which is to say, okay, I'll do this. I'll jack people, but I won't kill them. That's my line.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you ever know anyone who was like this in real life? Like, who was that into something or someone, like, where they would, like, almost kill themselves for someone they loved?
Yeah, me. Like, I have put myself in hell for people I care about, and you find out the hard way they don't always care the same about you, and it's a learning curve, man. That's why I don't have a lot of friends on purpose. The friends that I do have, I'm trying to do better with those relationships, because those are the ones I care about. But I've been burned one too many times behaving like Alita, thinking, oh, well, there's good in everyone. Everyone is good through and through. And while I still kind of believe that, it's not entirely realistic, because people change on their own time, and change takes a long time.
Yes.
I've never actually physically wanted to give someone my heart or anything like that, but if I was a match for a kidney for one of my sisters or any of my siblings, yeah, no problem. Cut me open. Not a problem. But that's also a lot of pressure to put on another person too. You know what I mean? Like, she's giving him her heart, but that's a big responsibility. You know what I mean? So it's a very fine line of give and take. You can't always be a giver. And I think that's something that I think is, while admirable about Alita, people take advantage of that very easily. Very, very easily.
Yeah, totally. The naivete that she has is like very high. But again, like you said, like there's a part of all of us, and I think again, this is another thing with the film where she sees the world through the eyes of someone who's very childlike and innocent, and she always wants to see the good, right? And we all have that in us when we're young, and at some point in our lives, we feel like, oh, people are good, people are this, and there's always something, right, like you said, that happens where someone, they stab you in the back or they lie to you or something that breaks that feeling. And, that's another end of innocence, end of childhood moment where you realize, oh, I can't trust people, all people. I have to have a barrier to keep certain people out. Because, it would be great if we lived in a world where you could people did good because good is the right thing, but we don't, No,
we don't. And people's definition of good is very different sometimes. I saw a tweet earlier today from someone who I watched, and they were just like, stop filming yourself. Stop posing doing good deeds. Like, you just do them because you're good. Not because you're going to get praise out of it. Like, oh, look at this great thing I did. You know what I mean? Like, when it's for the wrong reasons, when it's just to get praise or clout or attention, it stops being a good deed. You just do it because you think it's the right thing to do, and you don't ask anything in return. And that's something that I think is kind of lost a little bit. You just, whether it's grabbing, like my older brother, like, just reached in, like, this girl at the supermarket was struggling, reaching for something in the very back of like a fridge or something, and he just like, oh, here, let me help you, grabbed it for her and went about his way, because it was just a kindness. And I feel like that's something that's definitely not as present all the time. I don't know, where was I going with this? I kind of forget.
I feel like the thing that makes us, I think, makes this character good, makes Alita, like, we wish that the world had more people like her.
Exactly.
We wish that she was right, that people were always good and you can just like be giving to people.
Yeah.
Because there's a part of us that always, that has that thing, right? We have that, we connect with like, oh yeah, like, I felt that way at one point, and I wish that the world was like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then later on, so Alita decides, okay, I'm gonna do motorball, right? Because she's just always wanted to do it. Like, we saw that scene where she was just loving it. She was really happy. So she's doing this, like, it's like a lower ball. It's like the what do they call it in baseball? It's like the minor leagues. It's like
minor leagues, yeah.
It's like motorball minor leagues. So she's doing this thing. Meanwhile, Hugo's like, I'm out of the gang. I don't want to. I'm done with this. I'm not jacking people anymore. Because him and the douchey guy who Alita hates. It's the guy who's part of his gang.
His friend, yeah,
his friend. Like, the friend is like, oh, aren't you going to tell your girlfriend that you jack people? It's like, no, I'm not going to tell her that, dude. I'm trying to avoid that.
She dumped me. She would dump me.
Yeah, but I'm trying to, like, become a better person.
Yeah, can't you just support me?
Yeah, and the guy's like, no, dude, you need to, like, jack people. And then he's like, we should have jacked her, bro. Then we'd be rich. And then they get into a fight.
They get into a bro fight.
Yeah, bro fight. Then Zapan shows up. Zapan is still mad from losing to Alita, so he has a plan. Kill someone, blame it on Hugo. So Zapan kills a guy that they were jacking, then kills Hugo's friend, and then Hugo's on the run. Meanwhile, in this game, this motorball game, everyone who's at the game is there to kill Alita.
Yep.
And so she's like fighting for her life in this game, but she's kicking their ass. And it's really, this is another scene, just like that scene when she fights Gruishka in the sewer. This is like another scene that's so beautiful with the way that they do all with the technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so impressive. Kind of reminds me a bit of like Speed Racer, a little bit. Some of the scenes in Speed Racer, like the way, because it's like a race, but it's like also, you know, very technology based. I loved it.
I didn't see Speed Racer, but
Speed Racer.
I will take your word for it too. Though.
Speed Racer is very campy. It's not like Speed Racer. People hated it when it came out. People didn't like it, but it sort of has a cult following now. It is very campy. It's very cartoony, but it looks. There are some moments that look very beautiful, very, very, very beautiful. They really figured out a way to try and like make it be visually stunning. I'll just say that about the film.
Okay.
But yeah, in this film, like there's a scene where Alita is like kind of dodging someone, and then she like goes into like a loop, so she loops around and then attacks the person.
Mm-hmm. Oh no.
It's just this is my computer. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
I'm back. Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that scene was outstanding. The way that they did it was just so good, and they were still able to capture all the facial expressions and just these little character bits and character flaws in it, and it just was so good. And I loved that scene. It was so cool. It was it exceeded my expectations of what a real motorball like event was going to be, and like the roar of the crowd, like the spectators, the announcer. Like I loved his commentary and how he's just like, she's like an angel on the battlefield, and I'm like, I see what you did there. That was good, but it was so good. The way it was, just the timing was really good, the action was really good, and not to mention you have this harrowing dialogue between Alita and Hugo of him, you know, like, I'm in trouble and I know this is really important to you right now, but like, I'm gonna die. And she doesn't hesitate. She doesn't hesitate. I'm coming. Like,
yeah, so she bounces out of the stadium and they follow her, right? So that's when you know the jig is up, right? When it's like, it's not about the game, they're just trying to kill her.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're following her. And then there's, again, another cool scene where they're going through the city. And then Alita just takes these two people out. Like, basically, there's two people left following her. One's this guy, this really kind of Gruishka-looking guy, and this other chick. So then, what was it? Okay, so the guy is holding Alita. But then she's like about to come down and chop her, and then like Alita pulls the girl into her, and then the guy chops the girl in half, and then Alita throws the guy into like a trash compactor.
There's always a trash compactor or a grinder nearby. Something that grinds metal is always close by. Because it's Iron City, I believe it a little bit more. But yeah, some guy always gets sucked into something and it's just horribly crushed.
Yeah. So he gets crushed. Alita finds Hugo. They're at this church. And then, you know, the sign shows Hugo is wanted for murder and all this other stuff. Now, one thing I didn't understand is, like, I don't see why Hugo had to admit to jacking people at this point. I mean, he could have just been like, he set me up. I didn't murder anybody.
I think it was just a way for him to finally get it off his chest, because he couldn't hide it from her forever. Yeah. And besides, Zapan was there and the jig was up. And, I mean, why should Alita believe anything Zapan says anyway? He's just a smarmy piece of shit.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
I think at this point he was like, if I'm going to die, I don't want to die with a lie. I want her to know who I really am, but that I love her. I think it was just a way for him to kind of absolve himself and hope that she forgives him. And it's part of his redemption arc too. And there's always that moment of like coming clean in a film like this too, or any film that has high drama and high stakes.
Yeah. So at this point, he's wanted for this bounty. Alita is not sure what to do. Zapan then stabs him, and he's about to die. So, and in order to get a bounty, you got to kill them. You got to kill the person.
Mm-hmm.
So then Alita takes Hugo into the church. The people are basically waiting for them to confirm the kill or whatever. Sharon shows up, and instead of like giving them up, Sharon helps Alita and Hugo. So they come up with this plan where they kill Hugo so that Alita gets the bounty, but he's still alive. But they dismembered his head. And then Sharon and Ido, they put his head onto a robotic body so that he becomes an android.
Yeah, and Sharon's turn is really... I liked that she has a turn, and she also hasn't... There's like 2 redemption arcs in like one scene.
Yeah.
And I like that because it was just... Because it kind of harkens back to her maternal side, but also that, hey, not on the bed. Not on the bed. But there's a moment earlier when she's like, oh, how did you convince Hugo or the kid to do whatever? And he just chuckled, and Vector says, I promised him solemn. And that's what he's been promising her the whole time. And she's just kind of, I'm never getting.
Yeah, exactly. It connects for her too, right?
Yeah, so she's kind of like, why should I keep helping this guy? I'm never getting back. So that's kind of her, that's when she becomes kind of like a turncoat, and I liked that.
Mm-hmm. So then Sharon talks with Vector and kind of basically admits, like, she's like, I want out, right? And he's like, oh, well, now I'm going to send you to Zalem. Basically whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
And yeah, what we find out later is like the way you get to Zalem is you are just body parts.
Yep.
And so later on, it's her in a box. It's her eyes and her brain, and were there any? I don't even know if there's any other body parts.
I think there was like some hands. I think her hands.
Yeah.
Because she's a doctor, so I think it makes sense for her to have her hands. So because they're very dexterous or dexterous or whatever. So I think it makes sense that her hands, her eyes, and her brain. I think that's all that was in the box, and it's very gruesome.
That is gruesome.
Yeah, again, body farmers. Like it's, because that's what I was saying about what I was saying earlier. Is that you're just parts. You're just a part in a bigger play, and all they want is the parts you can offer, and it's just really gruesome.
Yeah, I mean that's it for her, right? She's just a parts in a box now.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Oh my god.
That's your work.
That's that. Yeah, and that's that her punishment for turning coat. Yeah. And then later on we see this. Alita has this flashback to like her Michelle Rodriguez attacking Zalem, which is another cool scene. And they, Michelle Rodriguez says, finish the mission, destroy Zalem. And then they see that there's this like ring, this like defense ring that like shoots out at them, and it's all really interesting. And so then Alita's like, okay, I have to confront this guy. I have to confront Vector and get them back for what they did. So she goes there, destroys all the sentinels. She shows up. She finds Vector, confronts him. Grishka shows up, and then she has to fight Grishka, and then she beats him. Mm-hmm. And then she finally meets Nova through Vector, and then they kind of have this discussion or whatever. And she's like, you underestimated me. I'm gonna take you out. You crossed the wrong person. And then she's like, she kills Vector, and she's like, yeah, one less puppet. Mm-hmm. And Vector has has some interesting, or Nova has some interesting dialogues. Like, oh, that looks lethal when she gets stabbed. He gets stabbed in the chest. Well, one other interesting thing too is so she steals Zapan's sword. And another really cool thing with her new suit is that these swords, part of her body can like create a flame in the sword.
Like a really cool blue flame,
which helps her like cut through stuff. And so again, this is old technology that was meant to be used with someone like her, right? She's able to actually maximize the potential of this thing.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to like see all that stuff come together, right?
Oh yeah.
And at this point, we really see her as a full-on person, right? Her full potential has been met at this point.
It's come full circle.
Yeah. So it's really cool. And then I forget, but there's some point where like she talks with Dr. Ido, and Ido's like, Hugo left.
He's going to Zalem.
He's going to Zalem, and he's climbing up the ring, or I forget what it is, but this basically it's this thing that connects the town with Zalem. And again, he's like, oh, I don't know. He thinks he can get there. He still thinks he believes in the dream, and he's like, I'm just gonna walk up there and it's gonna change my life. But she's like, no, there's nothing there for you.
Mm-hmm.
and
oh, I lost you again. You're back.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's my internet or something. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, so one thing that's interesting is like, because for Alita, she's like trying to get into his head, like, no, we have each other. Like, that's what matters.
Yeah,
right?
What matters.
It's like we have each other. Like that's all we need. We don't need this other fake crap. There's nothing there for you, but he doesn't get. Yeah, but he doesn't get it. And then we see Nova activate the defense ring, and Hugo, he's not able to make it. He can't jump over the thing, and then his body gets chopped up. And then she's holding on to him, holding onto his arm. Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I figured out a fix, but yeah, my internet, it's a problem. Sorry about that. I think this should be okay the rest of the way through. Yeah, so like I was saying, so Hugo got chopped up by this defense ring. Alita's trying to save him. She's holding on to him, but his arm is like falling apart.
Yeah.
And he says something. He basically tells her, like, you gotta let me go. You gotta, it's okay. Yeah, and then he falls into the clouds. And that's it for him. That's it for Hugo.
Yeah.
Falls to his death.
I think it's definitely sad. I kind of got mad at that part because I was like, she went through all of this. Sharon went through all of this to like get him this robotic body. Yeah, it's not ideal, but like some risk went into like getting you this new body, and then they just kind of kill him off. I mean, it is a little ambiguous because he falls into the trash heap, but he's not there at the very end of the film, so I assume they didn't find him, or if they did, he didn't make it. So that kind of annoyed me a little bit, actually. But I think to push her into being just, I don't know. Now she's very, very new. Now she's kind of probably going to have those walls and be a little more reserved when trusting or even falling in love again. So I get it, but it kind of just pissed me off a little bit.
Yeah, I've heard, like, so when I saw this with my friends hated, my one friend, he hated he hated Hugo, like, and was kind of happy to see him die. I don't know if I felt that way, but I definitely, this feels like this whole arc was like you said, it's a maturation for her. Mm-hmm. It's just serving the purpose of having her go through that first love and see that you can't always trust people, and see that sometimes people lie even if they're good, and being heartbroken. But yeah, it is a little convenient that he's just, he's gone, you know.
Well, it was a little easy, but it's also to make her hate Nova just a lot more too. So.
And another thing, like when she confronts Vector, she's like, "Oh, you lied to Hugo. He was never going to get to Zalem." And that's one of the major things that pissed her off. She's like, "Oh, you lied to the guy that I love. You just basically destroyed his life because he believed this lie so much that it destroys him."
Oh yeah, false promises do a lot to a person. They really do.
Yeah. And so that's this whole thing is her motivation for fighting Nova, right, going forward.
Yeah.
And so then, like, kind of time passes, and then we get like basically the end of the film. And this was the shot I was talking about in the beginning. We see Alita, and she's about to go into this motorball tournament or event or something. Uh-huh. And you see like the tear come down her eye, and then she like slices it with their blade.
That was amazing.
This is one of the best CGI shots I've ever seen in my life.
That was perfect. It was so good. It was just like, damn. But it's also her, like, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of symbolic of like her slicing away her feelings, or her fear, or her sadness, or her doubt. She's just like, no, I don't have time for that. And I'm gonna go rip some heads off.
Yeah. And so the another part of this is like, the only real way to get to Zalem is to become like the grand champion or something like that of motorball. And that's basically what she's doing now. And we're seeing her getting towards the end of that journey. And she's basically about to achieve that so that she can then confront Nova. And then in the end, we see Nova. We get to see his face. And who is Nova? Who's the actor?
As far as I can tell, that is Edward Norton. And I don't believe he's even listed on IMDb as being in this film. Because there's kind of some like vague shots of him. And I was like, that guy looks really familiar. Like, is that who I think it is? And then the very end, it just confirmed it. And I was like, you set up something so good. Because I don't think I've ever seen Edward Norton be a villain before. I can't recall. Maybe there was something that I'm just not remembering at the moment. But no, that's pretty good. It's like, that reveal was very, very good. Yeah,
that reveal was great. And it's it's a teaser. You're like, whoa, okay. I'm sold in. Like, give me more.
Exactly. I thought it was great. And I don't know if there'll ever be another film. But if there's not, you can kind of leave it to your own imagination, because there's plenty of this film that fuels that imagination. No, I thought it was good. I liked it. I had no problems with it. Hugo's death might be one of the few things that I might have issue with. Pardon me. But other than that, I thought it was great.
So from a 1 to 10, 1 being I'm not interested at all, 10 being I want it more than anything, how much do you want an Alita sequel after seeing this movie?
A 10. I would want to see it. My fear is that it wouldn't be as good as the first one, that they would try and overcompensate being better than the first one, but I think there's still some pretty good sequels out there that they could learn from, and some bad ones that they could also learn from. But I would love to see a continuation. I want to know more about her. I want to see her fight Nova. I want to see her play motorball. I want to see her. I just want to see her do more.
Yeah. I was thinking about this, and I feel like the answer to like that question and the way that you can get a sequel for sure is if James Cameron directed the sequel. I feel like that would make it happen. If he said, "Yeah, I'm going to do the sequel," it would happen 100%. Right?
Yeah, I think it definitely would, and I think obviously studios would be more than happy to throw as much money at him as he wanted. I don't know if that'll ever happen, just because I feel like Avatar's really consumed his life.
Avatar has consumed his life. Yeah.
I think he might die making those movies, and we've only had one.
I know.
There's going to be like, what, 4 movies, 5 movies or something?
There will be at least there. So he said recently that he said he was done with photography for Avatar 2 and 95% done with photography for Avatar 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But that I really think it is possible that he could direct the sequel. I think it is possible.
I think
because
it would be good if he did.
Yeah, and I think we would get a really, really good film. We'd get a really good sequel if he did direct it. Because I think that, he'll be done with Avatar at least up to 5 within the next 3 years. And then after that, he could do the sequel to this. But I feel like that's the way that we would get a sequel if it ever were to happen.
Yeah, and I think it would be done, and I think it would still be. It would be good because I want more of the Alita world. I want to go back and I already want to watch it a second time.
Yeah, cool. So overall verdict. What are your feelings? What are the things you really liked about this, and what's your final thoughts?
My favorite part was her. I mean, I know that sounds really silly to say, but I think she was just such a humble heroine, and which is really rare to see with heroes. Sometimes they just know how great they are, and I feel like Marvel did a good job of humbling superheroes a little bit instead of them all being like a Christopher Reeves Superman where they know how great they are and stuff like that. But yeah, I think she was naturally humble. She was curious. She was happy. You see her go through all of these things that an average teenager would go through until you get to adulthood, and then you're kind of on your own. She makes friends. She falls in love. She's a badass. She was my favorite part. She was just so human. Yeah. And she's not. And that's what makes Ito's line, you're the most human person I've ever met. So great. And she has she's a really good leader. She doesn't have a posse of people behind her, and even the bounty hunters didn't follow her, but she know that at one point she was a leader of maybe troops or something like that. But yeah, she was definitely my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah, I think that just the effects that they did with her too. We talked about that throughout. I thought it was so good. So well done. I mean, some of the best CGI I've ever seen is the stuff they did for her using motion capture. It's just so impressive. And especially considering that they made choices to make her look more like the anime, like the manga. And the fact that worked, and we didn't go like, oh, that's weird. It was like, oh, that works. And I empathize with this person. And it's, there's the, I forget, the uncanny valley, and she did not fall into the uncanny valley. It worked.
Yeah, she was great.
Mm-hmm. And also, yeah, like you said, the character is so good. And the world, it's hard to do world building well. Sometimes it can be too expository, or people think things can be confusing. But I feel like they did a good job of we start at the beginning and we see this stuff, and then we see the city and we see this trash, and then we see her, and then she's born basically, and then she's learning about the world, and we learn about motorball and all this stuff, and we learn about the war between and humans. And so she basically fought for which was the Martian republics or something, and that's how that battle on the moon happened. And all that stuff kind of gets laid out very easily for us, and it's not confusing. And whereas it easily could, because there's so much there. And I mean, this whole world to me is based on Earth, but it almost feels like it could be not our planet.
No,
Really.
absolutely, definitely. It's
You
just,
know,
yeah, world building is one of the hardest things to get right. Like you said, it can be either too much or too little, and then your audience doesn't know what to make of either. And when it's done right, people enjoy it. And when it's done right, it can stand the test of time, or it can be a continuation, and then you can show more and reveal more. Oh, well, this is what it's like in the South or the North, or maybe there's other cities that may not have a sky city above them, but there's still other people. Yeah, no, it's one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. Visually stunning and just a great story.
yeah, and I think the thing that really, like you said, you want to see more of this world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's when you know the world building worked. It's like, you're like, oh, I want to immerse myself more in the mythos, right? And this movie makes you feel like you want more, especially when you see Edward Norton and you're like, oh, that's the villain? Oh, yes.
And you're like, oh, god damn, please give me a sequel.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Alita Army, let's go. Let's get that sequel to happen.
Absolutely. And I was so worried that they were gonna. I don't know. You know how people are with like women who turn into cyborgs or something like that. It can either be really tasteful or it can just be really uncomfortable. And it was done in such a tasteful way that it was just. I was like, please protect her from bad things, please. And it was just so good. She was wonderful. I love Alita.
Yeah, I like Alita too. This was definitely a movie that was really high on my radar. And I'm really interested to see like where it's going to go from here, because I think it's got a strong presence of a strong fan base, and there's a lot of people behind it. And I think the fan base is going to push us to see a sequel at some point, which is exciting.
Yeah, I really hope so. I want to go back.
Yeah, same here. Especially if it's like at this level, where if we get something that, can do a Terminator 2 of this world that's already been built, like, man.
Yeah.
Right? Man, that's going to be exciting.
already has one of the greatest sequels ever made.
Yeah.
He already has that credit. And that's why I feel like with what you said, like if James Cameron was involved, I trust it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So yeah, that's our review of Alita Battle Angel. Well, thanks to everyone for stopping by and listening. And have a great rest of your weekend. And may the force be with you.
Live long and prosper.